Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. Kenneth R. Trester, who currently lives in the Cayman Islands and has been trading options since the options exchanges first opened in 1973, has completed his new book, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption, a practical guide delivering strategies and techniques for navigating today's volatile markets with confidence and precision, while seizing opportunities, mitigating risk, and maximizing profits in even the most challenging market conditions. With a career spanning over 4 decades, Kenneth has established himself as a leading authority in his field and is recognized as a leading international options advisor. In addition to his best-selling books, Kenneth has been a popular speaker at financial conventions and options trading seminars worldwide. Through his market letters, he's helped lay the foundation for a number of option strategies that are industry standards today. He has served as president of a management consulting firm and an assistant professor of management at the California State University, Fresno, and in the computer science department at Golden West College. He holds a BS and MBA from Utah State University and has done postgraduate work at the University of Oregon. International options advisor and thought leader Kenneth R. Trester, author of Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption, is our guest on This Week in America. Kenneth, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
Talk about the inspiration for writing this book, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. Why did you decide this was really a topic you needed to tackle?
Because I see the U.S. falling down economically, and we have to start taking attention to that matter. And so I started the book out by just saying that republics usually last only 240 years on average, and the U.S. is now in its 248th year. So we are dipping over the scale, and we should really take note of that this is occurring. And we have a republic because we have 50 states, and that makes it a republic. And right now we are leaning towards a decline in this comfort country, and that's what it comes down to.
You talk about the decline. Finish that thought because it's so important.
Okay, well, and so we've had a lot of republics over the years. By the way, almost every republic dies for one reason, and that is very large debt. And the debt of the U.S. has gone way out of reach as far as paying it back. And so, therefore, we really are in a bad position as far as our debt goes. And in fact, you know, the inflation that we're seeing right now is actually a low estimate because in the 1980s, this inflation would have been double what it is today. So we have to be really concerned with that. Now, the other problems that you see with a dying republic are not only a large debt, which is what we really face the most of, but we also have a very bureaucratic nation now. Our employment roles, as far as the government goes, are 23 million people, many of them yet who haven't even returned to work because of the pandemic. So this is a real problem. And the next thing is, besides a very huge bureaucracy, we also have a very huge regulatory situation in our government. There are 15 agencies which all have arms. In other words, they all have police forces. And they have really turned very corrupt and very, very large and very corrupt. In fact, the IRS is adding 80,000 new employees, which shows you how corrupt we have become. So that's really the premise of the book as far as from a starting point. And then I've tried to go through what are the ways you can invest in this kind of environment.
Well, it's so fascinating because it really, when you look at this, in fact, the case is made that every year seems to be getting worse. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the biggest problem again is the debt has gone way out of line, and that's usually the major cause of the decline of a republic is huge debt, and that's what we're seeing right now. So we better start turning around now not in the next year or two.
Is it too late?
So,
You make it sound like we still have a slight window that's open a little bit to try to resolve this. Is it too late, or can we still resolve the debt issue?
We still can resolve it, but the action has to take action very quickly. Okay, but we still have a chance. But the situation does not look good at this point in time.
How do we go about doing that?
And I guess the biggest thing for an investor is, what do you do in this kind of a situation? And the biggest thing you need to do is you have to invest in real assets, and that means not the U.S. dollar, but in real assets, companies that have good strength, A&I companies, and companies that are in assets like gold, silver, platinum, and other assets like oil, because we need to basically get away from the U.S. dollar. But the real clinker here is that the cyber investment, which are the currencies that are created by computers, basically they are trying to make air out of into money, and that's not the way it's going to work, because these currencies are really a big, huge Ponzi scheme, probably the biggest in the history of the world, and eventually that they're going to diminish also.
The book is Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. The author is Kenneth R. Trester, Trester. His website is optionplayer.com. That's optionplayer.com. Book available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the usual places. And we have all of this on our website. You can link directly to Kenneth's website, optionplayer.com, and get information there as well. Are there opportunities that come from adversity? Sometimes we see adversity and we shy away from it. Are there opportunities that we should take advantage of?
There sure are, and that's what my book is all about, and that is you have to invest in something like options. And options are ways of betting on the upside or downside of what the stock market is going to do or what a stock is going to do. And stocks are the assets that you're looking at. So by buying options, or what we call writing options, you can create very profitable situations. And that's basically the second half of my book is all about using options to improve your investment situation. And you should be trying to invest in assets, and I'm saying stocks, gold, silver, oil, but you also want to be able to set up situations where you win almost all the time. And that's where what I teach you in this book is how you do that. How do you win 85% of the time, even in a very uncertain environment?
The book, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. Kenneth R. Trester, our guest on the program. Book available wherever books are sold, of course, at Kenneth's website, which is optionplayer.com. Talk about the role of diversity. Sometimes we fall in love with something and we forget there are other things out there. How important is diversity in our investment?
Well, it's very important. So you want to invest in a lot of different assets, and that's what diversity is all about. But again, you want to use options if you can, because for one thing, you can buy options for very low prices, for as little as $5 to control 100 shares of stock. Okay, so you want to try to buy a bunch of these options, and it doesn't cost you a lot to do it, just to sit there and watch these options. And even though they're cheap and probably will not pay off, once in a while they pay off big one, or very, very strongly. For example, in 1987, I recommended in my newsletter an option that cost $6.25. Then that's the cost of one cup of coffee, basically.
Yes.
And that option went from $6.25 to $1,800. So you can do it, okay? And also, right now, for example, there are options on stocks that are actually stocks that eventually will go bankrupt, but because of very huge short squeezes, they can go up a lot. For example, GME, which is a stock it's basically a game store stock jumped up dramatically because of what we call a short squeeze. So this is a way of buying a call, which is a bet that a stock's going to rise in price, and buying it for a very low price and seeing it jump up dramatically also.
For many people, this is probably hearing new terms for the first time, or terms they may have heard before but didn't fully understand. That's the benefit of what Kenneth has done with this book. He takes you all the way through this, investing in an era of power, control, and corruption. I mentioned that you've been there since options exchanges first opened in 1973. How has this evolved? How has this changed? Obviously, your investment strategy has changed over the decades to what it is now in 2024.
Well, what has happened is that I always thought that options would really take off, and eventually they have, because almost every stock now has options, and a lot of them too. So therefore, you have a lot of choices. So it's options are a very sneaky way of getting into the stock market for a low risk, and that's the real key. You want a low risk to get into stocks, but there is a way of using options where it is you're not getting real low prices, you get very high prices. In other words, it allows you basically to get options that what you're going to do is not buy the option, you're going to write the option, and that's a way of taking the bet instead of making the bet. And everybody can do that, but again, it's a kind of a unique way to play this game, because what you do is you wait for a stock to drop in price to a point where you want to buy it, and that's called a put right. And you can do this over and over again until you finally get the stock, but you want to wait for to write options on very expensive options on stocks, very expensive options.
You've got your
own different approach.
Yeah, and you have your own advisor with you with this book, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. It reflects the current state of the economy, and it's receiving rave reviews for the benefits that you're helping others attain. We mentioned some of the problems that are plaguing the economy right now. You also mentioned black swans in your book. Tell our listeners more about those.
Okay, black swans are unusual events that are not expected. In other words, it's like the reason they have black swan is because they never thought they had black swans, and they do, and that's what occurred in this kind of a situation. So you try to buy very cheap options and wait for possible black swans. That means changes in the economy that nobody expects. And that's what we are seeing right now, is the possibility of changes in the economy that you do not expect. And what happens that the stocks that are part of the stock market, some of them will jump up dramatically or go down dramatically. And that's why that one option I recorded in 1987 went from $6 to $1,800, because the stock market fell apart in 1987 by a much bigger percentage than you'd ever expect. What happens is that you get moves in these markets that are not part of what mathematics say would occur. Stocks move dramatically up or down, way beyond what anybody would ever believe would occur. And that's what a black swan is. It stimulates a movement up or down in the market that nobody expects, and nobody will ever possibly see until it happens.
Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. That's a new book by Kenneth R. Trester. He has many more that will help you in attacking the options market and being successful at doing that. And you'll find all that information at optionplayer.com. That's Kenneth's website. Talk about maybe some of the ways that we can make explosive gains that we will read about in your book, without giving too much away. But what are some of the things that we can do so we can see results and feel like we're success at this?
Okay, you want to try to select for the big wins. You want to try select very cheap options. Again, remember, you can buy an option for as little as $5, and that controls 100 shares of stock. And you want to try to start collecting those options. You can just buy a bunch of them and just sit on them and hope and wait for that black swan that could occur. So you want in this kind of a market, you never know what's going to occur. So this is a way of kind of protecting yourself from a very, very large gain or loss. And so therefore you want to be buying these very cheap options, setting them aside, waiting for that black swan to occur.
This and so much more in Kenneth's book, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. Keep giving you his website. It's very important, and we will have this on our website as well, so you can link on directly, optionplayer.com. Let's go back briefly and talk about some of these troubling areas, troubling signs that you see there. We mentioned the debt problem, which we all read so much about. We've been reading about it for decades, and nothing seems to happen. What should happen? What would, if you were to sit in to talk with somebody that had power to make changes, how do we go about addressing the debt problem? Because by not addressing it just gets worse.
Yeah, well, the debt problem is really a big problem. And because we've now really gone way beyond what we thought we could go beyond. For example, right now we have $35 trillion in debt, and that's a small number. I think it's larger than that. And you want to you got to stop this process, because as your debt increases, the interest payments on the debt by the government is going to increase dramatically. And also, because there is so much corruption, we are losing control of what we are spending. For example, the number of dead people that have received money, these are dead people that have received money, is now $3.6 billion since the pandemic. Okay, $3.6 billion. So you want to basically, we have to try to stop that process if we can, because if we don't do that, we are gone. And I hate to say it that way, but we are gone if we don't stop that process. And like I said, the deficit has grown so large that giving dead people money at these kinds of extents is very negative.
You mentioned big government. Does that mean you're for small government and big government? You would almost think we'd be on top of some of these things, like giving dead people money. What's the resolution to big government? Smaller?
Well, you have to just reduce big government, basically. And you have to stop your spending, because that's causing the problem right from the start. So you have to stop spending and grow actually get the government to stop growing. A very difficult task.
Yeah, it is, and you've got it in the title of the book, An Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. Kenneth R. Trester, our guest on the program. Regulation, over-regulation, you talk about as well. What's the problems with regulation in the U.S.? What are some of those that are glaring to you that are just adding more to the problem rather than resolving the problem?
Okay, well, the regulation has increased dramatically, and the agencies that are running the regulation are becoming very, very corrupt. Let's take example of the ATF. That's an agency like the FBI that controls alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Yes.
And in the recent past, they took 10 different cars, came up to an early morning to one guy's home early morning, and they got out of their cars, went to the door, covered the camera so that they couldn't see who they were, broke into the place, shot the owner, and sent his wife into a car for 5 hours with blood all over from having been shot by the ATF, and just did something totally illegal. Yet they get by with this kind of stuff, and this is what we call corruption, basically, even by our agencies. And the IRS is a huge agency that's going to add 80 million people to its desks in the very near future. So you have to be very careful and really put a clamp on these agencies. They all have to be really revamped, and they got to look at who's involved in this, because these are getting to be very large agencies that are taking control of our government and doing totally illegal things in the process.
I mentioned in the beginning you've done a number of international options trading seminars in literally worldwide, including Russia. Fascinated by that. Do other countries, are they going through the same set of problems that we are?
Oh, I think they are. Yes. Yeah.
It's just
I was interesting. I spent 3 weeks in the Soviet Union before the fall of the Soviet Union, and they were trying to move away from communism into capitalism, but and eventually it did not work. So you never know. But I think a lot of other countries are experiencing these problems just like we are, and I guess the question is, can we take control of the situation? It looks like we're trying to take control of it, but you never know.
Well, this book, as I say, it's receiving rave reviews. Kenneth is he's at the forefront of all of the major changes that are taking out there in an educator in the field of options. And the book is Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. You'll find the book available wherever books are sold, and Kenneth's other books. And his website, of course, is optionplayer.com, and you'll get information there on this and all the other books that Kenneth has written. And I'd like to thank Reader's Magnet, the self-publishing and marketing company, for arranging our conversation with Kenneth today. Kenneth, a pleasure. I got about 30 seconds here at the end. How optimistic are you that we can prevent what an ending that you sort of described?
I do believe we can do it. We can survive this, but you never know.
I guess it's facing the problems. And the book, again, Investing in an Era of Power, Control, and Corruption. The book available wherever books are sold, optionplayer.com, Kenneth's website, Kenneth R. Trester. All this information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we are back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.